What is the one thing that can never be taken from you? Think about it for a moment. Your job that can be lost. Your money can vanish. Your reputation, it can be shattered in an instant. Your relationships, they can change or end. Even your physical health can be taken away by accident or illness. So what is left? What is the one possession that is truly unshakably yours? It's the last of the human freedoms. The one thing no person, no circumstance, no amount of suffering can ever touch. It is the ability to choose your attitude in any given set of circumstances. It is the power to choose your own way. Inside that single, simple idea lies the ultimate weapon against despair. It's the code for building a life that is not just resilient, but actively anti-fragile. A life that doesn't just withstand pressure, but grows stronger because of it. What I've just shared with you is not my own philosophy. It is the central, earth-shattering discovery of a man who was stripped of everything. His name was Viktor Frankl. And he wasn't just a world-renowned psychiatrist. For 3 years, he was prisoner number 119,104 in the concentration camps of Auschwitz and Dachau. He lived through hell on earth, and in that darkness, he found a light that has guided millions. He documented his experience and his discovery in a book that is less of a book and more of a manual for the human soul. It's called Man's Search for Meaning. Now, this is not a book review. This is not just another video summary. Think of the next 2 hours as a deep immersion masterclass, a psychological rewiring. We are going to take Viktor Frankl's life's work, forged in the most extreme conditions imaginable, and we are going to install its core principles directly into your operating system. Why? Because the same forces Frankl identified in the camps, the feelings of hopelessness, the loss of purpose, the existential dread, they exist all around us today. It's just in different forms. They show up as the quiet desperation in a job you hate, the emptiness you feel after scrolling for hours, the anxiety of an uncertain future, the feeling that you're just going through the motions, waiting for your life to finally begin. This book is the antidote. It is the answer to the question that haunts so many of us in the quiet moments. Is this all there is? Frankl's work promises that the answer is a profound no. He proves that meaning can be found anywhere, at any time, under any conditions, and that finding it is not a luxury, but a biological and psychological necessity for survival and for growth. In the next 2 hours, we are not just going to read a book. We are going to deconstruct the very operating system running your life and install a new one. An upgrade that will permanently change how you view hardship, how you define happiness, and how you answer the question of what you are here to do. Let's begin the upgrade. First, we will walk through the fire. We will enter the world of the concentration camp and witness the psychological journey of a prisoner. This isn't for shock value. It is to understand the crucible in which Frankl's ideas were forged. We will call this part 1, the crucible of meaning. Then once we understand the problem, we will dissect the solution. We'll unpack the revolutionary framework Frankl created called Logotherapy. This is part 2, the code to an unbreakable mind. In part 2, we will discover your single greatest motivation, the will to meaning. We will diagnose the modern epidemic of existential frustration and the existential vacuum. We will learn the 3 concrete paths to the meaning of life. We will uncover the incredible power hidden within the meaning of love. And most importantly, we will learn how to alchemize pain by mastering the meaning of suffering. Finally, we will shatter the myth that you are a product of your past with a powerful critique of pan-determinism. This is not a passive experience. This is a journey. It will be challenging. It will be confronting. But I promise you, if you stay with me, the person who finishes this video will not be the same person who started it. Let's go on a journey. 1 chapter at a time. Part 1. Experiences in a concentration camp. We must begin in a place of darkness. There is no other way. To truly understand the power of Viktor Frankl's wisdom, we must first understand the hell in which it was born. I want you to try and imagine it, not as a historical event, but as your reality. You are a respected doctor, a psychiatrist in Vienna. You have a family, a career, a manuscript of your life's work in your coat pocket. Then one day it's all gone. You're herded onto a cattle car with 100 other people, packed so tightly you can barely breathe. For days you travel, with no idea where you were going. The train finally stops. The doors screech open. You see barbed wire, watchtowers, and men in uniforms with dogs. This is Auschwitz. Frankl describes the first phase of a prisoner's mental reaction: shock. As they are forced out of the train, a senior SS officer stands there, calmly pointing his finger left or right. Left to the gas chambers, right to the labor camp. There is no trial, it's no appeal, just a flick of a finger. 90% of the people on Frankl's transport were sent to the left. Immediately, Frankl, holding his precious manuscript, is sent to the right. Fellow prisoner whispers to him, "If you want to live, throw that away." And so he does. His life's work gone. This is the first stripping away. Then come the others. Your hair is shaved. You are given rags to wear. Your name is gone. You're now a number. Frankl was prisoner at 119,104. Every tie to your former life is brutally, systematically severed. What happens to a person's mind in this state of shock? Frankl observed a grim, morbid sense of humor. They would joke about how they looked, about the horrors they were seeing. Why, it was a defense mechanism, desperate attempt to build a tiny protective shell around the soul. He also observed what he called the delusion of reprieve. The condemned man, moments before his execution, gets the illusion that he might be reprieved at the very last minute. Prisoners clung to this. Maybe it won't be so bad. Maybe I'll be home by Christmas. It was a psychological shield, but a fragile one. And soon it would shatter. How does this relate to you? Think about the shocks in your own life. A sudden diagnosis, a devastating breakup, financial collapse. In that initial moment, there's a sense of unreality. This can't be happening to me. We might make dark jokes, might cling to the delusion that it will all just magically fix itself. Frankl is showing us this is a universal human reaction to having our world pulled out from under us. But what happens next? What happens when the shock wears off and the grim reality sets in? This brings us to the second phase Frankl identified: apathy. Imagine waking up before dawn in a frozen, overcrowded barrack. We're given a piece of bread and a sip of foul soup for the day. You then march for miles in the snow to a work site where you will perform grueling physical labor for 12 hours straight. Under the constant threat of being beaten or killed for the slightest infraction, day after day, week after week, month after month. The human mind, to survive this, performs a terrible calculation. It begins to shut down. Apathy becomes the main symptom. It's a necessary mechanism of self-defense. You stop feeling. You see your friend beaten, and you feel nothing. You see a corpse being dragged away, and you feel nothing. You feel the pain in your own body, the hunger gnawing at your stomach, but emotionally, you are numb. Apathy was a protective shell that deadened the senses to the daily, hourly horrors. This was the death of the soul. The prisoners became fixated on the most primitive details of survival. Will I get that piece of potato in my soup? Can I trade this cigarette for a bowl of watery broth? Their entire mental and spiritual life shrank to this single, desperate focus. This is where most people broke. This is where they gave up. They would lie down in the barracks, refuse to get up. Smoke their last cigarettes, a sign they had lost all hope, and within days, they would be dead. They didn't die from the hunger or the disease. They died because they had lost their why. They had lost their reason to live. And right here, in the heart of this unimaginable apathy, is where Frankl made his most profound discovery. He noticed that some prisoners did not break, a very small few. What was different about them? It wasn't that they were stronger or healthier. The difference was entirely internal. While their external world had shrunk to nothing, their internal world was rich and vibrant. Frankl himself practiced this. Standing in the freezing cold on a work detail, his body racked with pain, he would detach his mind. He would transport himself to a warm, comfortable lecture hall, delivering a presentation on the psychology of the concentration camp. He found meaning in his suffering by seeing it as data, as material for his future work to help others. He would have intense, vivid conversations with his wife in his mind. He didn't even know if she was still alive. The love he felt for her, the image of her he held in his mind, was a light in the darkness. It was a source of strength that no SS guard could ever take away. He wrote, "The salvation of man is through love, and in love." He saw a fellow prisoner whisper to another as they watched a sunset, the sky ablaze with color over the gray misery of the camp. How beautiful the world could be. In that moment of appreciating beauty, they transcended their suffering. They found a reason. This is the core insight of the entire book. Even when you have lost everything, even when you are in the deepest pit of despair, you still have the freedom to choose your inner response. You can let the external world crush your spirit, or you can cultivate a rich inner life. You can focus on a future goal. You can hold on to the image of a loved one. You can find beauty in a sunset. You can choose to see your suffering not as a meaningless torment, but as a task. A challenge that, if you meet it with dignity, gives your life profound meaning. The men who understood this were the ones who survived. Their why for living gave them the how. Now what about the third phase? Liberation. The war ends. The gates are opened. You were free. You would expect pure, unadulterated joy. But that's not what happened. Frankl describes a strange sense of depersonalization. It didn't feel real. The prisoners had been living in such a state of tension for so long, they couldn't just decompress. Their feelings had been deadened for years. They had to relearn how to feel joy. Worse, some felt a bitterness and disillusionment. They returned to their hometowns to find that no one understood what they had been through. People would say, "We suffered too," and they would feel an unimaginable rage. The greatest suffering, Frankl realized, is to suffer without anyone recognizing your pain. They had dreamed of this moment of freedom for years, and now that it was here, it felt empty. This teaches us a powerful lesson. Freedom is not the end of the journey. Freedom is just the opportunity to begin the real work. The work of rebuilding a life. Of finding a new meaning. Of turning the scars of the past into a source of strength for the future. This journey through the three phases: shock, apathy, and liberation is the foundation. It is the raw data. It shows us the human spirit under the most extreme pressure test ever conceived. Frankl lived it. He observed it as a psychiatrist, and he survived it. But he didn't just survive. He took this horror and distilled it into a revolutionary psychological framework. A framework designed not just to help prisoners, but to help every single one of us navigate the inherent struggles of being human. A framework called Logotherapy. And that is the code we are about to unlock in Part 2. The code to building an unbreakable mind. Part 2. Logotherapy in a nutshell. The will to meaning. What is the primary driving force in your life? For a century, psychology has given us two main answers. Freud said it was the will to pleasure. Everything you do, in his view, is a complex strategy to seek pleasure and avoid pain. Then came Alfred Adler, who said it was the will to power. He believed your primary drive was to overcome feelings of inferiority and achieve significance and superiority. But Viktor Frankl, having witnessed humanity at its absolute worst and its best, proposed a third, more powerful answer. He said the primary motivation in man is the will to meaning. This is a radical idea. It says that deep down, more than pleasure, more than power, what you are truly searching for is a reason, a purpose. A why that makes all the house of life bearable. Think of it like this. Pleasure is a destination. Power is a vehicle. But meaning is a compass. You can arrive at a destination of pleasure and feel empty. You can have the most powerful vehicle and still be driving in circles. But if you have a compass, you always know which way you're going, even if the journey is difficult, especially when the journey is difficult. Frankl saw this in the camps. People who survived were not the ones who were physically strongest. They were the ones who had a meaning to cling to, a child waiting for them, a book they had to write, a loved one to see again. Their will to meaning kept them alive. How does this play out in our modern, comfortable world? Look around. We live in a society that is obsessed with the will to pleasure. We are told to do what feels good, to chase happiness, to optimize for comfort. And yet anxiety, depression, and a sense of aimlessness are at epidemic levels. Why? Because chasing happiness is like trying to catch a butterfly. The more you chase it, the more it eludes you. Happiness, Frankl argues, is not the goal. It is a byproduct. It is the result of finding and fulfilling your meaning. It ensues. It cannot be pursued. The same is true for the will to power. People chase promotions, status, followers, wealth. They get to the top of the ladder only to realize it was leaning against the wrong wall. They have power, but they feel hollow. Your task is not to ask, how can I be happy, Or how can I be successful? The real question, the one your soul is begging you to ask is, what is the meaning I am meant to fulfill? Answering that question is the first and most critical step to building an unbreakable life. It aligns your compass. So, here is your first activation step. For the next week, I want you to stop asking what you want from life. Instead, every morning, ask yourself a different question. What is life asking of me today? It might be to be a patient parent. It might be to finish a difficult project at work with integrity. It might be to be a good friend to someone who is struggling. Shift your focus from what you can get to what you can give. But what happens when this powerful will to meaning is blocked? What happens when you have a compass but you feel like you're lost in a thick fog? That leads us to the modern sickness Frankl identified long before anyone else. Existential frustration. Have you ever felt a deep nagging sense of boredom, feeling that your life lacks purpose, a kind of inner emptiness, even when everything on the surface seems fine? Frankl gave this feeling a name. He called it existential frustration. It's the frustration of your will to meaning. Your soul has a compass, but it can't get a signal. This isn't a traditional mental illness. It's not something a pill can fix. Frankl called the neuroses that arise from this condition neugenic. Neuroses knows is the Greek word for mind, or spirit. This is a sickness of the spirit. It's the feeling of the person who says, I have a great job, a nice family, a comfortable life. So why do I feel so empty? It's the cry of the human spirit starving for meaning in a world full of distractions. Frankl saw this emerging, even in his time. But imagine what he would say about our world today. We have endless entertainment, instant gratification, and a constant stream of information. We can numb any feeling of boredom or emptiness with a scroll, a click, or a binge watch. We have become masters at distracting ourselves from the fundamental question of our existence. This creates what Frankl called the existential vacuum. This vacuum is the state of inner emptiness, the feeling of being adrift, and human nature, like physical nature, abhors a vacuum. When there is a void of meaning, people will try to fill it with something else. What do they fill it with? They fill it with the frantic pursuit of pleasure hedonism, addiction, casual encounters. Or they fill it with the frantic pursuit of power, money, fame, control over others. Or they fill it with conformity, doing what everyone else is doing, thinking what everyone else is thinking. So they don't have to face the terrifying responsibility of choosing their own path. Frankl identified a specific symptom of this vacuum he called Sunday neurosis. It's that feeling of depression and anxiety that sinks in when the busyness of the work week stops, and you are left alone with yourself and the stark emptiness of your life. For us, it might be the Netflix scrolling neurosis, or the endless feed neurosis. It's the same phenomenon. The activation step here is a challenge of awareness. The next time you feel that pull of boredom, that urge to grab your phone and numb yourself, I want you to stop. Just for 60 seconds. Don't act on the urge. Sit with the feeling of emptiness. Ask it a question. What are you trying to tell me? What meaning is missing in my life right now that I am trying so hard to avoid? This simple act of non-reaction is the first step out of the vacuum. But this begs the ultimate question. If the will to meaning is our primary drive, and frustration of that will leads to an existential vacuum, then how exactly do we find meaning? The meaning of life. What is the meaning of life? Philosophers have debated this for millennia. But Frankl's answer is both revolutionary and profoundly simple. He says, you are asking the wrong question. You should not be asking what the meaning of life is. Life is the one asking you the question, and you have to answer, not with your words, but with your life. He writes, ultimately man should not ask what the meaning of his life is, but rather he must recognize that it is he who is asked. This completely flips the script. Meaning is not some abstract universal concept you go out and find like a treasure chest. Meaning is concrete. It is personal. It is discovered in each moment of your life through the choices you make and the responsibility you take. So how do you discover it? How do you answer life's question? Frankl identifies 3 primary paths. The first path is by creating a work or doing a deed. This is the most obvious one. You find meaning by contributing something to the world. This could be building a business, creating a piece of art, raising a family, writing a book, or perfecting a craft. It's about pouring your unique talents and energy into a task that is bigger than yourself. It doesn't have to be grand. The street sweeper who takes pride in his work and sees it as his contribution to the city's health is living a more meaningful life than the CEO who is only in it for the money. The meaning is found in your dedication to the task. The second path is by experiencing something or encountering someone. This is the path of reception, not action. You find meaning not by doing, but by appreciating. This could be standing in awe of a beautiful piece of nature. It could be immersing yourself in a masterpiece of music or art. Most importantly, it is found in love. When you truly love another person, you see their potential. You see the person they could become. By believing in them, you help them realize that potential. Frankl argues that love is the ultimate and highest goal to which man can aspire. It is in the selfless connection to another human being that we find one of the deepest forms of meaning available to us. The third path is the most profound. It is the one that sets Frankl's philosophy apart from all others. You can find meaning in the attitude you take toward unavoidable suffering. Notice the word unavoidable. This is not about seeking out pain. It's about what you do when pain finds you, as it inevitably will. When you are faced with a situation you cannot change, like a terminal illness, the loss of a loved one, or being imprisoned in a concentration camp, you still have one last freedom: the freedom to choose your attitude. In that choice, you can find meaning. You can turn a tragedy into a triumph. You can turn your predicament into a human achievement. Frankl tells the story of an elderly doctor who was mourning the death of his wife. He was deeply depressed. Frankl asked him what would have happened if you had died first. The doctor replied, "Oh, she would have suffered terribly." Frankl then said, "You see, doctor, you have spared her all that suffering, and now you have to pay the price by surviving and mourning her." The man said nothing. He simply shook Frankl's hand and left. His suffering had not been removed, but its meaning had been revealed. It was now the price he paid for the love he had for his wife. His suffering had become a sacrifice. In that sacrifice, he found his purpose. So, the activation step is this. Look at your life right now through these three lenses. 1. What am I creating or contributing? 2. What am I experiencing? What beauty am I appreciating, and who am I loving? 3. What unavoidable suffering am I facing, and how can I choose my attitude toward it to create meaning? Your meaning is waiting for you in the answers to those questions. The essence of existence. If the meaning of life is found by answering life's call, what does that say about the very nature of being human? Frankl's answer is powerful. To be human is to be responsible. He calls this responsibleness. It's the core of existence. You are always responding to the questions life asks you. Your life is the sum total of your answers. This shatters the modern idea of self-actualization as the ultimate goal. The popular idea is that you need to find yourself and express your inner potential. Frankl says this is backwards. Life is not about self-expression. It's about self-transcendence. True fulfillment is not found by looking inward at yourself. It is found by looking outward, toward a cause to serve or a person to love. The more you forget yourself by giving yourself to a cause, by loving another person, the more human you become, and the more you will actualize yourself. Self-actualization is another byproduct like happiness. It's the unintended effect of a life lived with meaning. Think about the most admirable people you know. Are they the ones constantly focused on their own feelings and their own journey? Or are they the ones who are dedicated to something beyond themselves? A family, a community, a mission, a craft? They aren't trying to be happy. They are trying to be useful. And in being useful, they find joy. The essence of existence, therefore, is to live a life of commitment. It is to accept the responsibility that life has given you. This is not a burden. It is a privilege. It is the very thing that makes life worth living. Your activation step is a thought experiment. Imagine you are 80 years old, looking back on your life. What would the 80-year-old you advise the current you to do? What responsibilities would they tell you to take on? What causes would they urge you to serve? What risks would they encourage you to take for the sake of a meaningful life? Live today in a way that your future self would thank you for. The meaning of love. We've touched on love as one of the paths to meaning, but Frankl gives it a special, profound place in his philosophy. He argues that love is the only way to grasp another human being in the innermost core of their personality. When you truly love someone, you don't just see them as they are, with all their flaws and imperfections. You see them as they could be. You see the potential within them. By seeing it, by believing in it, you empower them to realize it. Think about it. Has anyone ever believed in you more than you believed in yourself? A parent, a teacher, a partner, a mentor? How did that belief change you? It likely gave you the courage to reach higher, to become a better version of yourself. That is the power of love. It is a creative force. Frankl experienced this directly in the camps. The mental image of his wife, the conversations he had with her in his mind, were a source of incredible strength. Love is not just a feeling. It is an act of seeing. It is a commitment to the potential of another person. This applies not just to romantic love, but to all forms of deep human connection. It's about seeing the humanity in others, even when it's hard. Here's your activation step for this powerful idea. Think of one important person in your life. For the next week, make it your mission to see them not just for who they are today, but for who they could be at their absolute best. Hold that image of them in your mind. And then, through your actions and your words, communicate that belief to them. Don't flatter them. Genuinely see their potential and reflect it back to them. Watch what happens, both to them and to you. This is how you use love as a force for mutual growth. But what about the opposite of love? About pain, loss, and suffering? This is where Frankl's philosophy becomes truly life-altering. The meaning of suffering. This might be the single most important chapter in this entire book. If you can internalize this one idea, your life will never be the same. The idea is this: suffering ceases to be suffering at the moment it finds a meaning. Let me repeat that. Suffering ceases to be suffering at the moment it finds a meaning, such as the meaning of a sacrifice. Our natural instinct is to avoid suffering at all costs. We see it as an evil, a mistake, something to be eliminated. But Frankl, having lived through the worst suffering imaginable, came to a different conclusion. He saw that suffering is an inevitable, ineradicable part of life, just like fate and death. Cannot have a complete life without it. The question then is not how can I avoid suffering? The question is how can I respond to suffering? If the suffering is avoidable, your task is to remove its cause. If you have a rock in your shoe, the meaningful response is to take it out. But what if the suffering is unavoidable? What if it's a chronic illness, a permanent disability, the loss of a person you love? In these moments, you are given a unique opportunity. The opportunity to find meaning in your attitude toward that suffering. You have the chance to bear your cross with dignity, with courage, with selflessness. Imagine a block of stone. On its own, it's just a rough, meaningless object. But in the hands of a sculptor, the chipping away, the suffering of the stone, is what turns it into a masterpiece. Your unavoidable suffering is that block of stone. Your attitude is the chisel. You have the power to turn your personal tragedy into a testament to the human spirit. This is not a justification for pain. It's a strategy for transmuting it. It's psychological alchemy. It's how you take the lead of your worst experiences and turn it into the gold of wisdom, character, and meaning. The prisoners who were able to do this were the ones who maintained their human dignity. They were the ones who would give away their last piece of bread. They were the ones who would comfort others. They were proving that, even in a concentration camp, man can be worthy of his suffering. Your activation step for this is the most difficult, but also the most powerful. Identify a source of unavoidable suffering in your own life. It could be something from your past that still hurts, or something you are facing right now. Stop running from it. Stop resenting it. Instead, ask it a question. What is the task here? What are you trying to teach me? What kind of person do I have the opportunity to become by facing you with courage? By changing the question, you change everything. Your suffering is no longer a random, cruel affliction. It is your assignment. It is your personal crucible for forging meaning. Logodrama. How can these ideas be put into practice? Frankl developed therapeutic techniques, one of which he called logodrama. It's a way of looking at your life from a different perspective to unlock new meaning. Imagine you are in a therapy session with Frankl. You're complaining about your life, feeling like a victim of your circumstances. Frankl might ask you to do something strange. Might ask you to imagine that you are on your deathbed, looking back at your life. From that final perspective, what would you say about the moments you are living right now? What would you wish you had done differently? What opportunities for meaning are you currently missing because you were too focused on your frustrations? This technique is a powerful way to jolt yourself out of a victim mentality. It forces you to take responsibility. Looking back from the end of your life, the petty annoyances fade away. The small fears seem insignificant. What stands out are the moments you had a choice. To love, to create, to act with courage, to find meaning in your struggle, whether you took that choice or not. This isn't about being morbid. It's about using the reality of life's finiteness to bring clarity and urgency to the present moment. Your life is not a dress rehearsal. Every day you are writing the story that will be read from your deathbed. Make it a story worth reading. The activation step is to actually do this. Set aside 15 minutes. Close your eyes. Genuinely imagine yourself at the very end of your life, reflecting what matters, what doesn't. What advice would that wise, old version of you give to the you of today? Write it down. That is your soul telling you what it needs. Logotherapy is a technique. Beyond logodrama, Frankl developed 2 specific techniques for dealing with anxiety and obsessive thoughts. They seem counterintuitive, but they are incredibly powerful. The first is called paradoxical intention. This is for people who suffer from anticipatory anxiety. For example, someone who is afraid of sweating in public. The more they fear it, the more they try not to sweat. And of course, the more they sweat. No. They are trapped in a vicious cycle. Frankl's advice: try to sweat intentionally. Go into the social situation and tell yourself, last time I only sweated a quart. This time, I'm going to sweat a gallon. By trying to do the very thing you fear with a sense of humor, you break the cycle. The fear is fed by your resistance to it. When you paradoxically intend to do it, you take the wind out of the sails of the anxiety. You can use this for fear of public speaking. I'm going to give the most nervous, shaky speech ever. Fear of not sleeping. I'm going to stay awake all night. And many other phobias. Or it short-circuits the fear mechanism by replacing fear with a humorous, paradoxical intention. The second technique is dereflection. This is for people who are hyper-focused on themselves and their problems, often leading to obsessive thoughts or sexual dysfunction. They are trying too hard. The more a man tries to prove his potency, the less likely he is to perform. The more someone tries to force themselves to be happy, the more miserable they become. Dereflection is the art of turning your attention away from yourself and onto something else. It is the practical application of self-transcendence. Instead of focusing on your own performance, you focus on your partner. Instead of obsessively monitoring your own happiness, you focus on a meaningful task. You get out of your own head by getting into the world. You find relief from self-obsession by committing to a cause or a person outside of yourself. The activation step here is to identify one area where you are trying too hard. Is it trying to be liked? Trying to be perfect? Trying to force a feeling? Apply one of these techniques. If it's a fear, try paradoxical intention. If it's a self-obsession, practice dereflection by deliberately focusing your energy outward for an entire day. Critique of pandeterminism. Finally, we come to Frankl's powerful rebuttal to one of the most disempowering ideas in modern thought: pandeterminism. This is the belief that you are completely determined by outside forces. The biological version says you are nothing but a product of your genes. The psychological version says you are nothing but a product of your childhood and your subconscious drives. The sociological version says you are nothing but a product of your environment and your social class. In all these views, you are a puppet. You have no real freedom, no real choice. Frankl, having seen men in a concentration camp, the ultimate environment of determinism, knew this was a dangerous lie. He saw men who came from similar backgrounds and were subjected to the exact same horrific conditions. Some became saints, and some became swine. What was the difference? Choice. He writes, "Man is not fully conditioned and determined. He determines himself whether he gives in to conditions or stands up to them." In other words, man is ultimately self-determining. Yes, your genes, your childhood, and your environment are all powerful influences. They are the raw materials you have been given to work with. but they are not the final say. You are the artist. You are the one who decides what to build with those materials. This is the very foundation of human dignity. It is the belief that no matter what has happened to you, no matter what your programming is, there is a space between the stimulus and your response. And in that space lies your freedom and your power to choose who you will be. To believe in pandeterminism is to give up your power. It is to remain a victim. To embrace Frankl's view is to claim your power as a self-determining human being. The final activation step of this journey is a choice of belief. Right now, you can choose to believe you are a product of your past, or you can choose to believe you are the decider of your future. Which belief will you choose to install as your new operating system? The answer to that question will define the rest of your life. We have been on an extraordinary journey. We walked through the barbed wire of Auschwitz and into the deepest recesses of the human soul. Saw humanity stripped bare and discovered the one freedom that can never be taken away. And then, from those ashes, we extracted the code for a life of unbreakable meaning. We learned that your deepest drive is not for pleasure or power, but for a reason to live. We learned that the emptiness many of us feel is a starvation of the spirit, an existential vacuum that can only be filled with purpose. We discovered that meaning isn't some mystical secret hidden on a mountaintop. It's right here, right now, in the questions life is asking of you. It is found in what you create, in who you love, and most powerfully, in the attitude you choose when faced with the suffering you cannot change. We learn that the goal isn't to find yourself, but to lose yourself in service to something greater. And we have been handed the ultimate truth, that you are not a puppet of your circumstances. You are the one who chooses. You are the one who decides. Viktor Frankl's life is a testament to this truth. He lived it. He proved that even in the face of absolute horror, meaning is possible. His message, forged in fire, rings across the decades with a simple, powerful challenge to each of us. Your life is not about the pursuit of happiness. It is about the pursuit of meaning. Happiness is the beautiful shadow that follows a life well lived. So now, the journey with me is over. But your real journey has just begun. The person who started this video was seeking answers. The person you are now has the tools. The question is, what will you do with them? You can close this window and go back to the way things were. You can let the existential vacuum creep back in, numbing it with the usual distractions. You can continue to believe you are a victim of your past and your circumstances. That is your choice. Or you can make a different choice. You can accept the challenge that Frankl's life represents. You can start asking what life is asking of you each day. You can look for the meaning in your work, in your love, and in your struggles. You can embrace the profound responsibility of being the author of your own life. Between the stimulus of your daily life and your response to it, there is a space. Viktor Frankl found that space in Auschwitz. His legacy, his gift to us, is the knowledge that this space exists for you, too. In your office, in your home, in your heart. In that space is your power. In that space is your growth. In that space is your freedom. If this journey has shifted something within you, if it has sparked a commitment to live a more meaningful life, then subscribe to this channel. It's not for my sake, but for yours. Do it as an act of commitment to the version of you that is ready to answer life's call. Share what you learned in the comments below, not just as a comment, but as a declaration of your own search for meaning. Thank you for walking this path with me. Now go and live a life that has a why.